Hello everyone, and welcome back to Fallout 76 for our weekly trip to the Purveyor, where once again we're going to burn through 1,000 Scrip on 3-star legendary weapons. We're going to talk about what makes them good, what makes them not so good, what changes might be coming to some of them, what changes I might like to see with some of them. You get the picture, you've seen these before. As always, if you enjoy videos like this and you want to see more, do go ahead and subscribe, hit the like button, leave a comment. There's always a lot more to come on the channel. And for those of you out there who really enjoy these videos and know there are some changes coming with future updates to how legendaries are going to work, I do want to assure you that at least for the foreseeable future, I am going to continue to produce these. I think they give us a really good opportunity to talk about some of the weapons, talk about some of the effects and how they might work together that, just simply crafting them probably isn't going to do. So at least for the foreseeable future, I plan on continuing these. So if you enjoy them, don't worry, we're going to keep them up. With all that said, let's jump inside and see what we've got today. And our first roll of the day is a Vampire's Crusader pistol with VATS critical shots doing more damage and 90% reduced weight. So this is a pretty interesting one. I don't absolutely love the Vampire's effect on this because it's not an automatic weapon, but it still shoots as fast as you can pull the trigger, so you can still get some mileage out of that effect. VATS critical shots doing extra damage is kind of interesting to me for a pistol build, and 90% reduced weight also has an interesting role to play. And I say that because one of the things I've wanted to do is get one of these on my rifle character or my commando, which I have. I want to put the 5.56 receiver on it, make it a stealth weapon, run it on my bloodied stealth commando without the pistol perks, just to see if it can be an at all viable kind of sidearm using the ammo that I'm already running around with. So this one might make for a really interesting one to try just that. So don't be surprised if we see this one in a weapon spotlight coming up soon with an imperfect build. I think that's kind of an interesting way to take a look at it. We'll see if it can be useful in that scenario. And I think it might be able to be, so we'll find out. Let's see what we've got next. Next up, we've got a Zealots explosive 25% less VATS AP cost combat shotgun. So this one's kind of an interesting one. We know that on the PTS right now, these Slayers effects, these situational effects that work against one enemy type, are going from 30 to 50% damage. There's also a pretty vocal crowd out there advocating for them to go much higher, all the way up to 100%, which I actually tend to agree with. I think if you're going to limit the damage to one specific type of enemy, you should make it really powerful against that type of enemy. That would make a lot of sense to me. The other reality is that since One Wasteland, when they took away all the multiplicative damage, 100% more damage isn't really that much more. So it's not as big a deal as it used to be. So let's make it count for something. I think that would be a great idea. Bullets exploding for area damage is always a good thing to have. Less VATS AP cost definitely helps. I don't love the situational effect as much as I'd love something more general, but for Zealots, there's uses for it. There's plenty of events where you go up against Scorched. You've got Scorched Beast Queen fights. You've also got Scorched in daily ops now, so I could see worse weapons to get than this one, especially if you're already running a shotgun build. So not a perfect primary, but the rest of it is pretty darn good. Let's see what Mama Mumbles has for us next. Well, while the first two weapons had some redeeming qualities, this one kinda doesn't. Sure, the Exterminator's effect will get a buff right along with Zealots, but it's still just not very useful. Nobody's really doing a lot of hunting of Mirelurks and bugs, so I just don't see that being particularly good. 10% damage while aiming on a bow is not super useful. That will be getting a buff to 25% in the next update, or in the Steel Rain update, which is a very good thing, but I think it's kind of lost on the bow. In my experience, the best way to use this is in VATS, so don't love that. Faster movement speed while aiming. honestly, I'm not even convinced that actually works. I certainly am not somebody who digs into the data mines and picks out all the technical details, but just from kind of a gut feeling test, I've never felt like I was moving any faster while aiming with a weapon with this on it, so if it works, it doesn't do a whole lot. So unfortunately, this one just, it's not a winner. Sorry. Let's see what we've got now. Oh, wow. Okay, Mama Mumbles, I don't know what I did to you, but yeah, so here is a trifecta of trash, if ever there was one. So we've got the Stalkers combat rifle with bashing damage and damage resistance while aiming. Let's go through these one by one with a suggestion, because we always try to be constructive and positive in some way. The Stalker's effect is completely worthless. Number one, it rolls on melee weapons. It does absolutely nothing on melee weapons. It's a complete waste of an effect. On ranged weapons, in theory, it would do a little something, but in my experience, it really doesn't. It doesn't offer any significant benefit whatsoever. So it might as well be no primary effect. What could be good here, though, would be to change that Stalker's effect, and I've seen some suggestions along these lines. I think what you make here is an effect that gives you a bigger sneak attack multiplier if you are hidden. Not if you're in caution, but if you're hidden. Make it big. Make it something like a 5 times multiplier that basically guarantees a one-shot kill on anything other than bosses. I think that would be really interesting. It would change up your playstyle if you wanted to be a stealth build and maybe slow things down a little bit so it's not quite so easy to get all that damage, but so you have to work for it a little bit, but at the same time, it would have a big payoff. I think that would be really interesting and change up the diversity of the playstyles of the game a little bit. Bashing damage is completely worthless. It's getting a buff with the next update to 50% instead of 40%. Who cares? Bashing damage is useless now. 40% more of useless is still useless. 50% more of useless is still just a tiny bit less useless. 50 damage resistance while aiming. Honestly, who cares? 50 damage resistance isn't a whole lot. I'd kind of like to see those damage resistance perks changed to just be damage avoidance percentages. I think that would be a little more useful. Damage resistance has a low payoff when you've already got a lot of it. And if you don't have enough of it, 50 more doesn't do a whole lot for you. So sadly, this weapon is absolutely going back to the Scrip bin, and it's a shame that there was so much to say about it because it is truly completely worthless. And now we've got a Furious Cryolator with 10% damage while aiming and 25% less VATS AP cost. So this one's kind of interesting. Again, the 10% damage while aiming is going to go up to 25% with the next update, so that's definitely good. But unfortunately, I think what's interesting about this weapon is all the things it doesn't have. With the Cryolator, it's not really a big damage-dealing weapon. This is more of a specialty use case kind of weapon. Where it comes in really handy is boss fights. If you want to freeze the Scorchbeast Queen while she's on the ground, you can freeze her and hold her in place, which makes it really easy for everybody else to do a ton of damage. You can do the same thing with the Imposter Sheep Squatch. Freeze that enemy in place, everybody else can do a ton of damage. So, extra damage perks on a Cryolator don't really do a whole lot for you. Less VATS AP cost, that's probably a little bit helpful, but really the perks I want to see on a Cryolator are things like vampires that'll help keep me alive while I use it, and things like quad that'll give me more shots before I have to stop and reload, which can help keep my target frozen. Unfortunately, Furious isn't doing much for us. Damage while aiming isn't doing much for us, so if you want to cryolate things, then, well, one with less VATS AP cost is probably better than one without it, but unfortunately, the rest of the effects here aren't doing a whole lot for this weapon. And how will you disappoint me next, Mama Mumbles? Well, you'll do it with a Zealots 10mm pistol. So, well, maybe this isn't as bad as I thought, but yeah, it's still not great. So what do we have working for us here? 90% reduced weight. Even with some mods on it, this is still going to be a very lightweight weapon. So carrying it as kind of a backup or a sidearm is not the worst thing in the world. Not the worst idea you could come up with. 10% damage while aiming is going to get a buff to 25%. The damage to Scorched, of course, will get a buff there as well. We talked about that at length at the beginning, so we're not going to go deep into that. But here's where I think this combination could work reasonably well for someone. 90% reduced weight makes it a good choice as a backup weapon. 25% damage while aiming if you are not a VATS user and you aim manually anyway, then that's just a flat damage buff for you. So that's good. Extra damage to Scorched, not amazing, but if you can get a lot to Scorched and a little bit to everything else from your damage while aiming, well, that's kind of a good thing. So don't necessarily love it on this weapon, but kind of an interesting thought for the future. And now we've got a Mutant Slayers Gatling gun with VATS hit chance and agility. So Mutant Slayers is another situational effect that will get a buff in the future. That's good. And Mutant Slayers is one of the better ones. Once again, it's another one where we've got predictable scenarios where you're going to use it. Daily ops, farming West Tech, events, things like that. Not a bad thing to have. VATS hit chance is going to get a buff to 50%, which is also very effective. That means your VATS hits are actually going to land. And extra agility will give you more AP. Now, with a weapon like this that fires relatively slowly and still uses cheap ammo, you combine this with a, say, unyielding power armor build that you can now get, or you will be able to get in the Steel Rain update. Well, now maybe you actually use VATS with something like this because you'll have more agility because of those unyielding buffs, and maybe you can get away with it. I don't think this is going to be a first choice for that. If it had 90% reduced weight, it might be better. But it could be interesting to see where things like this go once that update comes out. So don't love that one, but maybe in the future something similar would be good. And I don't love this one either. So here we've got an instigating gamma gun with extra limb damage and perception. So the gamma gun is an intriguing weapon in Fallout 76. It's not very useful in PvE. It's not useless in PvE. You can still kill things with it, even though most things are resistant to radiation, or in some cases like ghouls are actually healed by it. The ballistic damage that the weapon does deal outweighs the radiation damage. You can kill plenty of things with it, it's just not that efficient. It's also loud, you can't sneak with it, it's got a small magazine, so you gotta reload it a lot, and it's not a real fast reload. The ammo is expensive to craft. It's just not ideal for anything really outside of PvP. Now, in PvP, on the other hand, it is an interesting weapon. It's an interesting little counter weapon that you can use. So maybe you're going up against someone who is a low health build. Something like this is going to fill up their radiation meter really quick. That's pretty helpful. Maybe they're a full health build. If you kill them with this, chances are, especially if you do it a couple of times, every time they respawn, they're going to have a ton of radiation on them and kind of be operating at a little bit of a handicap. So there's definitely some usefulness for this weapon inside PvP, but not much outside of it. And even in PvP, these aren't really the effects you want. What you want is quad with faster fire rate. That way you don't have to reload it much. You can dump a whole magazine into somebody and then you win. That's kind of how it works. We've got two left. What do we have here? Now we've got a Suppressor's Flamer with bashing damage and agility. So in theory, the Suppressor's effect wouldn't be too bad to have on a Flamer. The Flamer is a good support weapon. So if you're running friendly fire and you want to be able to heal up your team, you can use that. With the Suppressor's effect, that can reduce enemy damage output, which is all well and good in theory on paper. In reality, there isn't much in Fallout 76 that once you start shooting it with things is going to live for more than a couple of seconds. So what good does the Suppressor's effect really do, especially if you've got a whole team of people trying to kill it? So yeah, kind of a useless effect. Maybe there's something you could do to it to make it better, but Personally, I just don't really see the point of it. Bashing damage, we all know my feelings there. We've talked about that at length. Extra agility is a nice thing to have, but ultimately, here's another one that it's 3 stars that are doing nothing for this weapon. So that's really a shame, but you know, that's how it goes sometimes. Let's see what's next. And oh look, more disappointment. Okay folks, we're going to take this opportunity to talk about one thing that definitely should be done with the legendary pool before Steel Rain and legendary crafting goes live. So the effects on this weapon: Zealots, faster fire rate, faster movement speed while aiming on a double barrel shotgun. Zealots effect, talked about it at length, no need to dive deep there. It's fine, I guess. 25% faster fire rate. This is a weapon that fires as fast as you pull the trigger. So what do I get out of faster fire rate? I get absolutely nothing. There's no reason for that to roll on this weapon. It doesn't do anything. I've rolled a 3-star weapon, and the 2nd star might as well not exist. Same thing with the 3rd star, faster movement speed while aiming. I don't think it even works, and even if it does anybody care? I think the answer to that question is no. So that's why this is important. You know, you've got a pool full of legendary effects. It makes it really, really hard to roll the things you want. That's why people are insisting that they want to be able to roll individual stars. That would be less of a concern if when you roll a 3-star weapon, there's no chance that you're going to get effects that don't work. If I grinded the game and got the legendary modules and the legendary cores to do a 3-star double barrel shotgun, and this is what I got, I'd be pretty upset about that. 2 of the stars don't even work. So why are they here? I try not to be somebody that rants and raves. It's a game, it's supposed to be fun, and it is fun, and I love it. But this does need to be pointed out. It's time here. They need to take this opportunity to do a deep dive into the legendary effects, pull the ones out of rotation on weapons that they don't apply to, and you know, maybe get rid of some that just don't work at all, like Stalkers, or change them. But yeah, it's time for something like that. There's too many things being added to the pool now to dilute it with all of these kind of garbage, broken, or improperly placed effects. I will get off my soapbox now. That's going to wrap this one up. So, as usual, we did get a couple of interesting things towards the beginning of our visit here, but sadly, the remaining items were truly garbage. They were truly awful, but you know, that's how it goes at the Purveyor, and it gives us an opportunity to talk about all those things, and that's where I see the value in these videos and why they're going to keep going. So remember, if you enjoyed this and you want to see more, do go ahead and subscribe, hit the like button, leave a comment. There's always more to come on the channel, and I promise the vast majority of the time, I don't end the video with my attempt at a persuasive rant. So usually we're just having fun here. So I do hope I see everybody next time. Until then, I'm Fisty McRib.